we have gifts in our lives, and to pretend like to look at something else and to look at another accomplishment and to look at another piece of gold or another boat or another guitar or another parent and to say, I want that, is to say, I trust what someone else has received is better for me than what the road God has placed me on.
Yeah.
And even if you were in their shoes, you did not walk their road.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so recognizing you are where you are for a specific purpose.
Right.
You're not going to enjoy your life trying to do what somebody else has done. Welcome to the Hope in Real Life podcast with Jason Gore. Our team is passionate and committed to bringing you more hope in the everyday, real areas of your life. If this conversation and content is valuable for you, please do us a favor. Like, subscribe, and even share. You never know how valuable it could be to share a little bit of hope with someone else. Let's get the conversation started. What's going on, Hope in Real Life family? Hope you are doing well. This episode, we are going to be talking about something that can cause a lot of us to slow down, maybe put energy and effort into the wrong places in life, and it is the comparison trap. I'm here with my good buddy, Matt Curtis.
Hey, yo.
He is heralded as the leader of our Fuquay campus, here at Hope Community Church down in the great town of Fuquay-Farina.
That's it.
And we... And we have Bradford here with us as well, a little co-host. How you guys doing today?
Good, man.
Good.
Yeah. How would you say you're doing in comparison to one another?
I am definitely doing better.
I'm better than I deserve, so.
Okay.
Well
All right.
played.
Okay.
Well played.
All right. Comparison. Listen, I'm going to jump in. I know this is probably not something that everybody else struggles with, but I want to bring this in. Like, I want to make this safe to be real for all of us. It was, let's see. I think it was... let's call it the first first half of the year in 2021. And our church, where we're kind of based out of, like obviously everybody who listened to this isn't a part of a church. That's cool. We are so glad you're here. But I was asked to move into, after our founding pastor retired, I was asked to move into the role of lead pastor of Hope Community Church, this huge mega church that's like making an impact all over the world. And the reality is it was kind of a quick retirement. There wasn't a succession plan in place. I was serving in the role of executive pastor, kind of working behind the scenes. And I felt super comfortable in that skill set. You know, it's something that I've been a coach, for a couple decades.
Right.
And so I felt like that was kind of my role. I know how to do this. And then it was like, okay, and then now you got to start speaking regularly in front of thousands of people. Was never really anything that I had done. And the truth is, our founding pastor was like elite level, like world class. This guy is one of the best communicators in front of people that I've ever heard to this day. And like all this pressure of, okay, now I have to be like that guy.
Right.
And I have to communicate like that guy, and I have to be able to be winsome and win the heart. And look, I might have a lot of skills. To be honest with you, being winsome's probably not one of them. And man, with that comes a ton of pressure and expectations. And it actually limits, like what I found was the more I tried to live into how do I be like that guy, the more uncomfortable I became. And it was like stifling. It was almost like the less able I was to actually live into what it was that I needed to do. And I'll be honest with you, here we are 3 years later, and I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
But I got to a point to where I realized that I'm telling you, I told my wife and I've told some people close to, like, I cannot do this the other way.
Right.
Like, I'm 40. At that point, I was 43, and this is probably very recent, like within the last year that I got to this point. So I'm 45 years old. I've gone through life circumstances that other people haven't gone through. I have life experiences that other people have gone through that have shaped me, that have molded me. If I'm going to do this, I got to do it my way. And it might not be the way that all of the same people loved the way before. But I'll tell you something I don't have a shot at doing is being somebody else.
Yeah.
Like I can literally only be the person that God's made me to be.
Yeah.
And if that's not enough to get it done, and I had this conversation before God, it was like, if who I am is not enough to get it done, then you're going to have to get somebody else, because it's so much pressure and weight and you don't even enjoy it. like trying to do something or be something that somebody else was. And I think when we get to this comparison thing, you got to stop and ask yourself when you're comparing yourself to someone else or something else, like, who told you that that was your path? Because you just might have a different path.
Right.
And so for me, man, it's a real thing. And I still deal with it in a number of different areas, but that's the one that's the most specific. So anyways, for what it's worth, I just thought it'd be good to come right out of the gate and say, we all struggle with this stuff. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah, and it's just intrinsic. It's not, nobody told you to think that way or told you to lead like him. It's just our natural response is to compare ourselves.
In fact, other people probably said that. Like, hey, just be you. It's like, oh, cool.
100%.
Thanks for the advice.
Yeah. I mean, in leadership, authentic and genuine is all we can be. Otherwise, you're a fraud.
Right.
And the person who first knows you're a fraud is you.
Right.
So you got to be yourself.
Yeah.
That's good. Thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that, I mean, you don't have to speak to that exact thing if you don't want to, but what would you all say is the root of that? Like, is it like, are there insecurities? What are those? Like, and then maybe that's actually the answer and I just jumped the gun, but
You know, I think it's just like, you know, in the last episode we talked about pride. I think it's
these two go hand in hand.
It's so insidious. It's really small. It sneaks in. You don't realize where it comes from. But I think a lot of it comes from fear of failure.
Oh, yeah.
Fear of not being enough in other people's eyes.
Yeah,
And so
fear of letting others
maybe
down.
that's what it is. You know, there's other people, so you feel the pressure of other people's expectations. And then you look, watch this. Surely I'm not enough. So I got to be something else.
Fear of your understanding of other people's expectations because they're probably not even expecting that from you.
Right.
But you're projecting it on them
Right.
and working out of a place. It's just all lies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually the next thing I was going to ask, but you touched on is like, okay, how does it affect our self-worth? But that's basically what we're getting at. Because I know, I think I'm pretty hard on myself, and I think that I'm not good at something, but then I have to be like real. It's like you're comparing yourself to one person, which is even the other thing about it. It's like you don't have to be the best at stuff, but it's like, because I think there's some helpfulness that can come with comparison, because it's good to measure where you're at and where you measure up in certain areas, right? And this topic, like I said, goes hand in hand with, like, we talked about pride in the last episode. Like, there's like this line, like measuring yourself up against people can be healthy when it's in regards to like how you're getting better in an idea, in a sport, in a subject, in a technique you have or whatever.
Sure.
But it's just because somebody else may be better than you doesn't mean you're terrible either. Like that's
Well, you might be terrible at what they're good at.
Yeah.
I mean, the truth, you know, in the way that they are good at it.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
I mean, in leadership, like if you're leading an organization, your goal is not to do it the way someone else did it.
Right.
The goal is to get the job done. Matt, you and I are similar in some ways. We're probably different in some ways, right? You're by
How are we
God's
similar?
by what's that?
How are we similar?
We're bald. We both have beards.
There we
What
go.
are you going to
I'm
say?
with
We're
you.
both like hilariously humorous individuals.
yeah.
Wonderful sense of humor. But now you distracted me. What was I saying before you said? Oh yeah, we don't have to do it the
way someone else
organization.
has,
We're you and I are similar,
Yeah.
but by God's grace, but we're also different. But by God's grace and mercy, hopefully we can both lead healthy families.
Yeah.
But we're probably going to get there a little differently. There's going to be some foundational principles that are the same.
Yeah.
And so I think we don't have to be good at the same exact things.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, and there's a story in the Bible where David is this little shepherd boy. David is about to go fight this giant Goliath, right? And his attendants try to get him to put on Saul's armor, like the other king's armor. Well, the armor doesn't fit. And David's like, I can't do it that way.
Right.
I can't put on that armor. That's not what I do. That's not how I fight. I'm going to go in there with a sling. I can't
Right.
swing a sling with this big, heavy armor. Now, I'm using a little conjecture. I don't know that if he actually said that, but I know he didn't wear it, and I know he got the job done.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think, you know, a guy by the name of Ray Dalio, he wrote this book called Principles. And in the book, he talks about how you can't expect people to do things that they are not genetically predispositioned to do.
Yeah.
And so if you're not really, really good at something, yes, you can work on it, but you probably need to find some other strengths that you have
Right.
and lean into those to still be able to get the same job done and it's going to look different. It's going to move differently. It's going to smell differently. It's going to feel different.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that the job's not getting done.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's another point that you pointed out too, was talking about when you look at somebody else, it's not just about like if you're leading other people, and this is another nugget, another
Right.
direction, but it's like flipping the table. Like if you're going to judge somebody else, if you're a leader of an organization, or like parents, why can't you be more like your brother? Like something like, like if you're like comparison of other people that you're in charge over and thinking they all need to be the same.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole nother thing. And that's poor leadership. Man, I've heard like if you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, I forget how that thing
It's going to
ends.
fail every time.
Yeah,
We'll
it's
just
going to
leave
fail
it
every
at that.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like that's another flip flop to the opposite side, another way to look at that conversation. So that's just a good point to sit on too.
Yeah, one of our sons, I'll just leave it at that. One of our sons, he has some different issues than I do, right? I'm always been able to connect well with people. I was okay in school, all that stuff. And as he gets older, I have this thought in my mind, and it makes me feel bad. But I'm like, man, why can't you just be more like me? And I'm comparing my 9-year-old son to me socially, and then I mean, kind of full circle here is I'm fairly introverted. I like space and time.
You and Jillian are a lot alike.
We are, man. She is a firecracker, and I am the water you put one in.
How many times have you used that line?
Usually I go with Tigger and Eeyore, but more Pooh Bear than anything. Anyways, we came home one day, and we were out doing all kinds of things, baseball game, basketball game, some church activities,
miserable, but
school,
awesome at the same
homework,
time.
like you name it, is back to back to back to back. And we got home, said, hey, come on, man, we gotta go to somebody's house to do something. He's like, yeah, full volume. Yep. I just need some time alone. And I was like, bro, you are like me. It's okay. But I felt like I was leading him poorly, even internally, by thinking, man, why can't you just be like me? Yep. And that's poor leadership.
How about this one? Like comparison, not necessarily for yourself and, and how you lead or expectations on other people, but how about like, hey, this person has that and I want that.
Sure.
I want a boat. I've wanted a boat for a long time.
Yeah.
The truth is, I don't really I'm not in a life stage.
Not a boat guy.
If I had a boat, it would sit in my driveway. I mean, we spend every Saturday at wrestling tournaments. Well, now granted, that's in the winter. But I don't know that, but like there are times where there are things that we want. And we think, well, man, if I haven't accomplished that, if I don't have a paycheck that's that high, if I don't have this much money in my bank account, I'm not getting it done in life. You guys have any of those?
Yeah.
Sure.
Man, this is maybe really real. I have some friends who travel a lot. They go to different places in the U.S. They go to different countries. And I'm like, I want to do that.
Yeah, travel's
so
one.
bad.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I don't know their situation, but I completely, but I just know that their marriage has had struggles and they don't have children. I don't know the exact reason why, but God has reminded me, and this doesn't speak to their exact situation, but God has reminded me, he's like, you have things that they probably wish they had.
Yeah.
And you're fixated on this one thing.
Yep.
And the comparison that God has called me and reminded me to is to be reminded that I have everything that I need to carry out the calling he has placed on my life.
Yep.
I guess that's not a comparison, but, and that was for, I mean, like I'm, like that's hitting me right now, but I've always thought that, and God has always reminded me that it's like those moments you are sitting there praying and asking for something to happen or to achieve something, acquire something, and you're feeling as though other people have that, I want that. It's just the reminder that you have way more than you'll ever need to begin with. Like this is all extra. And that doesn't mean God doesn't want to do other great things for us or give us great things, because there's that scripture that says, how many of you want to give your children great things? Like God also wants to do that for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when your kid asks for food and you're not going to give them a stone, like that's Bradford's paraphrase. But I have done that. And I think it's human nature and it's coveting. It's on the verge of that. but I have all I'll ever need. And at the end of the day, I have a wonderful wife and 2 kids I'm going to go home to here in a little bit, spend some time with, and I still do that.
Hope in Real Life family, we just want to take a moment and let you know about a resource that is available to you. I know a lot of our listeners aren't necessarily active in a church, might not even be a Christian. We are still thankful that you're spending time with us. However, we do get asked regularly, how can we find out more about your church or even just about this Jesus guy? And so if that is you, I want you to know you can tune in to gethope.tv. We have live services on Saturday, 4:15 p.m. and 6 p.m., or on Sunday at 9:30 a.m. or 11:15 a.m. Those are Eastern Standard Times. If you can't tune in during those times, we will drop our YouTube link as well as our podcast link down in the show notes. We would love to have you join in with us. Let's keep sharing some hope. Yeah, I've seen a picture before that just had it was like a person sitting under a tree by themselves, and they kind of had this look of want, but the text with the picture was like, you've got to remember, the young person wants to be old, the old person wishes for youth, the person with time wishes that they were important, the person that's important wishes they had time. Right. I mean, and you go down this thing, like, if we're not like we have these insatiable appetites for what we don't have. And if we don't recognize that and just say, man, this will run us in the grave. We can let our own desires and aspirations run us into the grave, having this sense of inadequacy and like we're not experiencing what we were created to experience. When the truth is, we've been talking all day. I don't know if I said this earlier or not, but we are who we are based on the life experiences that we have. We are exactly who we have been made to be in that moment. And then, if you want to go full circle and apply a biblical lens to it, you're exactly who God has allowed you to become. But that God also created you for to belong, and created you with the sense of purpose that is unique to you. It's not anyone else's road. Yeah. And we've got to stop and realize, like, who told me that I needed something that I don't have? Yeah. And then that's where you start doing business with yourself and then figuring, you know what, maybe I am where. Now, that doesn't mean goals are bad. It doesn't mean them putting plans and actions but this is your journey. That's not someone else's journey. Yeah. There's a intrinsic in probably every human of dissatisfaction. Yeah. Where am I going to find satisfaction if I get a boat or more guitars, bigger muscles? I don't know. Less weight, if I look the right way. Those two things you feel that I care about? I bet you have a lot of guitars. But I think, it's hard to sit down and do some work on what gives me satisfaction. And you got to wrestle over some of that stuff because some of those answers aren't good. Yeah. Yeah. Comparison. So a lot of times we get in this mindset of, okay, for us to accomplish this, we need to do it this way, or it needs to look like this, and then that's our perspective. That leads us to a place sometimes of maybe being competitive in the wrong areas. Yeah. And I think sometimes opening our eyes to exactly what is around us in our lives can take us to a place of maybe a little bit of collaboration. So I've heard kind of this comparison thing being minimized a bit when we can move from a competitive mindset to a collaborative mindset. Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with your perspective of going through life and what you're trying to. Am I trying to accomplish something for me, or am I trying to accomplish something for we? Yeah. And we get our eyes so much. Okay, let's personalize it. I get my eyes so fixated on myself sometimes that it's easy to forget that there are other people in my lives. One thing that really helps me with this comparative thing is getting my eyes off of myself and how do I accomplish what it is that I want to accomplish, and then turn my attention to other people and say, how do I help the people around me accomplish what it is that we want to accomplish? Yeah. And that tends to minimize the desire for personal preferences, right? The desire for, hey, what is best for me in this situation? Curious if you guys found yourself in a situation like that or anything like that's been beneficial, or you've realized like, hey, I'm struggling with this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it becomes normal to be competitive and compare yourself to other people and want something else. Contentment is not where I live.
Right.
Just being content in the way things are. I mean, you're a driven leader in this organization, and we want, as an organization, we want to follow after that drive. So I think even in some of my own comparisons, compare myself to you, the way that you lead and you cast vision or these things, and I'm a little bit more passive. And some of that I feel like is a deficiency that I have, and some of it probably is good to balance me out a little bit.
Some of it saves my butt, to be honest with you.
Pump the brakes, pull the handbrake.
Yeah, I live in like this, I guess you could call it influencer world. I really hate that title, but
we got a big shot over here. Look out.
Yeah.
Anybody can be one. Anybody can open an account and start doing stuff. And like the world I live in, like YouTube and stuff, I make product that I sell to guitarists. That's part of my income. And there are other people who do the same thing and be considered competition. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys who lives in that space as well, we were hanging out talking about something, and this has stuck with me. And this is 5+ years ago. He goes, well, like rising tides lift all boats. Mm-hmm. And I was like, dang. And like, it's still like, I still talk to my business partner. Like I bring that up all the time. Like some new person, some new group will rise up trying to do something similar to us. And I will say also, like, competition in this realm, like that also helps innovation. I really wish somebody would rise up against Amazon because they think they can tempt me with their overnight delivery and it doesn't show up till 2 days later. I'm like, you losers, where's the competition? They got me. But like, if I was honest with myself, the times where I've collaborated and offered help with things, it's come back to help me in some way. And it can almost seem kind of like manipulative, but if that's the heart of things and how you do it, eventually it's gonna bite you in the butt. But if you're genuinely trying to help other people succeed, only good things are going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's just that. Rising tide lifts all boats. Rising tides lifts all boats, all ships, something like that. Whatever you say, you get the gist. But competition is a good thing to a certain extent, but collaborating is actually that's the best part. Well, I mean, if I could continue on that idea as well, and kind of what I said also, but like gratitude, I think is a very helpful, like it's kind of a cheat code, being gracious and being appreciative of where you're at. Like, I mean, to continue into the idea of like, if there is comparison, competition, depending on like kind of where you're looking at things, like gratitude can play a big role of that. So that's kind of like a practical approach. I mean, if there's other practical approaches you guys can think of, because that's always what I want to make sure we've touched on at some point. Like, what's some practical ways to readjust thinking? Like, I mean, it makes sense to be like, don't be selfish, but like,
the practicing a mindset of gratitude has been proven across multiple fields, multiple areas to be not only beneficial, but necessary really to thrive in life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you go through life feeling like you don't have, your gas tank is going to run out. If you run through life being grateful for the things that you do, you're going to be filled. And so the truth is, all of us have blessings in our life. And look, there could be somebody that's listening to this right now and be like, hey, you don't know my life. And you're right, I don't. I've been through some really hard times. And so please don't hear that in the way in which it's not intended.
Yeah.
At a bare minimum, you have a God that loves you, that created you, that wants to provide peace in the midst of the storm that you find yourself in. And so if that's you, I would say, I know a lot of churches have jacked some things up. Do everything you can do to find a church and just express the brokenness that you have. And if you don't get the love there that you need, then try another church. The church is filled with broken people. It's not going to be perfect. But coming to terms with the fact that you have a God that created you, that knit you together in your mother's womb and had a plan and a purpose for your life is going to bring you to a place of gratitude faster than anything else that you have. Mm-hmm. And then for the rest of us, we have gifts in our lives. And to pretend like to look at something else and to look at another accomplishment and to look at another piece of gold or another boat or another guitar or another parent and to say, I want that, is to say, I trust what someone else has received is better for me than what the road God has placed me on.
Yeah.
And even if you were in their shoes, you did not walk their road.
Yeah.
And so recognizing you are where you are for a specific purpose.
Right.
You're not going to enjoy your life trying to do what somebody else has done. And so we have to take the time in our lives to make note, what are we grateful for?
Yeah.
Where am I? What is my road? And that's not to say, so we just sit in gratitude with where we are and that's it. No, you can have goals, but if you want to have fuel to go and accomplish those goals, it's got to be fueled out of who you are and what your journey has been if you're going to have the gas to get to where you believe God's calling you to go.
Yeah, there's something to, the heart of gratitude, it can be a hard place to come to, especially if you're self-focused on everything. I used to work in San Antonio. I worked in the homeless world, and we had 300 singles and hundreds of families. This is 2008 when the housing crash happened, and it was just bad everywhere. And one of the things that I absolutely, really just detested about the whole thing was we would have some well-off families come in, bring their kids. So they were trying to expand the perspective the child had on how good their life was, and they'd come bring them down to serve or something. And it just felt like we were trying to get to gratitude through either superiority maybe, of like your life is better than you think it is.
Right.
And I don't think that's the right way to get to there.
Yeah.
I do think like a daily being intentional about assessing my life. I used to be a part of a men's group, and every day as we started the day, it was answer these 3 questions. What are you hopeful for today? What are you grateful for today? And what do you regret from yesterday? And it just helps set you up for, one, to be intentional, but also to look forward of how I can be better at being grateful, have a better perspective about others, and own it for myself.
Yeah, like if you don't, not one who reads the Bible, then you can use this as a motivational quote. But
got it.
The Bible says to us in Ephesians 4:1 to live a life worthy of the manner of your calling. And you've been called, specifically, we've all been called to different things, but we've all been called to, if you've been following along on these episodes for the last handful we've done, we talked about love, we talked about self-control, we talked about pride. Like, we've been called to higher standards to be better people. And so that is something I always have to remind myself. God's called me to certain things, and I need to ensure that I'm living a life worthy of that. And in other words, another way to break it down, comparison does not help with that. To think that I'm not where other people are, and to think that I'm not quite where I need to be yet, if I'm following what I've been called to do, all that matters is that I'm taking the next right step and doing the next right thing and the next right thing. And I don't know, that just really speaks to me and kind of like ties in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But like, it's just a very powerful idea, powerful quote, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
To still draw that all together.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's not an accident of where you are and how you've been gifted in life. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to be in moments of brokenness. The words of Jesus from his mouth were, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." And there is something to recognizing that what you have been given and where you are is your unique road. And how do we find gratitude in that, knowing that the blessing that we're desiring, the contentment that we're desiring, might not be in the moment, but there is a promise from God through Christ that there is blessing involved in that, and that takes work to believe that.
Yeah.
And so, if we're gonna move out of this comparison trap, we've got to recognize our road is our road, and our gifting is our gifting, and we've got to recognize who we are, how we were wired, the giftings that God's given to us, and walk the road that we've been placed on uniquely to accomplish and to see the things come to fruition in our lives that God actually has for us. And at the end of the day, like, there is this deep belief we have to know that there is blessing on the other side. It might not be the blessing that Matt Curtis has or that Bradford Mitchell has, but like, there is blessing on the other side.
Yeah. You need to borrow my boat.
What?
No.
You got a boat?
I have no
Hold
boat.
on a minute.
Kayak?
Hope in Real Life family, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Listen, if this content has been valuable for you, as always, I want to encourage you, like, subscribe, share with somebody else of whom you know this would be beneficial. And then if there's anything that we can do for you, we'd love for you to drop a comment, and we would be more than happy to follow up in any way that we can. As always, Matt, Bradford, thank you all so much for being here with us.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Matt.
No problem.
We will see you all on the next episode. Until then, let's keep sharing some hope. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hope in Real Life podcast. If this content was valuable for you, don't forget, like, subscribe, share. You never know how important it could be to bring a little hope into someone else's life. There's even a place here for you to comment. We would love to hear from you and hear your feedback. Until next time, let's keep sharing hope.